Welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of our best all-around rifle cartridge duo. If you could only have 2 rifles for the rest of your life, and the criteria is hunting all North American game from prairie dogs to moose, and it needs to be efficient. Both need to be efficient, and preferably both need to be accurately and easily shootable at 1,000 yards for target practice. What would the duo be? So on part 1, I eliminated a ton of calibers. If you're curious as to what I eliminated, go back and watch part 1. Obviously, I did not put everything on here. There's some really good cartridges that I just did not list for the sake of time. I can't put everything on here. I decided if I was going to have 2, the most obvious division would be between a varmint/predator hunting caliber cartridge and a medium to large game hunting cartridge. So an example, a gun that would be good from prairie dog to wolf. Maybe mix in a mountain lion in there, but preferably prairie dog to coyote, really. And then another rifle that would be great for, like, let's say antelope all the way to moose. So it's got to be able, got to have the power to stop a moose. It's got to be flat shooting for your western hunting, like mule deer and antelope. And not too much of an overkill for your whitetail deer and your antelope. So these are the finalists, or not, I wouldn't say the finalists, but these are the ones that made the first cut. And right off the bat, I'm going to mark 2 off that, based on the reasons I gave on the first one, I really should have marked them off the first video. I just overlooked them. So I'm going to do that now. So I mentioned last time that, like, the 7mm .08 and your 7 Mauser and your 6.5 Swede and 260 Remington, all those are really nice, kind of a sweet spot in the middle of all this. But if you're going to have 2, you don't want a gun right in the middle. You want guns more specific to those 2 applications. And the 6.5 Creedmoor, in my opinion, would be right there with those other ones. So it should have been eliminated. The 22 Hornet. Had I looked at that earlier, I would have eliminated it on the first part. It's a fantastic cartridge. I used to have one and I had a blast shooting it. No pun intended. It's a really fun cartridge to shoot. It just doesn't kick. Its report is really quiet. It's just fun to shoot. You're obviously not going to be shooting at 1,000 yards with it. It's not really efficient. It could do the job on your coyotes and stuff. It definitely could and has, but it's really not ideal for that. So we're going to cut that off the list. Really cool cartridge though. Okay, so is there any other obvious ones that I could cut off the list based on what I'm seeing? Probably not. In all honesty, anything on here you could make the case for, but I'm going to kind of rule out a couple that I think are a little bit on the fringe. They could do it, but they're a little bit much. So I'm gonna go ahead and rule out the 300 Rum. And the 204 Ruger. I own a 204 Ruger. It might, well, I would say it is the best caliber on this list for prairie dogs. And it definitely can hold its own on coyotes. But from coyotes on up, it's just a little bit much. And with that tiny bullet, I just don't think you're going to end up getting the kind of ballistic coefficient that you would want for shots at 1,000 yards. It actually is a fairly efficient design. It's based on the 222 Remington Magnum, which I didn't actually list on here. It's actually a really cool cartridge, but it's just a little bit fringe. It's kind of on the outside. It's really almost perfect for prairie dogs, but not quite the all around. And then the 300 Rum, fantastic for elk and moose, and would also be very flat shooting, but I don't want to go deer hunting. I don't want to go whitetail deer hunting with a 300 rum. It's a little too much. So that'll be the first cut. I'm gonna make another really tough cut here. This makes me want to cry. Not actually cry, but just, I've never owned a 222 Remington, but very fond of what I've read about them. Always wanted one, and I still would like to get one. Known as an extremely accurate round. Before some of the specific 22 cartridges that was designed for competition shooting, before those were designed, the triple deuce was like the king. It was fantastic. You know, it's even less recoil than a 223, even longer barrel life. There's no downsides to it. But in all honesty, even though I just gonna be frank with you, I like the triple deuce better than the 223. In all honesty, the 223 is just a little bit extra gas, just a little bit of an improvement. And in all honesty, it probably would deserve the nod over the triple deuce. Personally, I like the triple deuce more. But if you're wanting to shoot a little bit bigger varmints and predators in a little bit further range, your 223 is just going to be slightly better. And in all honesty, they're almost identical. Like if you look at the case designs, there's not that much difference. It's just kind of a little bit of a souped up triple deuce, but those two are so close. If I can only pick one, I think the 223 is more ideal. I'm gonna go ahead and mark off a couple more here. And I honestly think these two are really cool. And I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm marking them off mainly because of my own ignorance. I don't really know enough about them. I've read a little bit about them and they sound really cool. The 277 Sig Fury and the 6.5 Weatherby RPM. They actually sound really cool. And I need to study them out further. But I just honestly don't think that they're any better than some of the other ones on the list that I know more about. So if you know more about these, I'm sorry. I'm not saying I'm right on this. I'm just going to be honest with you. So I don't know enough about them to really think that they're better or more deserving than other cartridges on this list. One more is the 300 Savage. The 300 Savage is the first centerfire rifle cartridge I ever shot. I can't remember what it was. My uncle had an old Savage. I think it was a lever action, but I can't remember. But it was an old Savage, and it was in a 300 Savage. And my first year deer hunting, he was going to let me use that, and I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Ended up using a 308 Mauser and did much better. But that has nothing to do with that gun or that caliber. It was me. I didn't know what I was doing. He particularly liked that caliber. A lot of people liked it. In my previous video series regarding the best all-around, where I could only pick one, I didn't talk about the 300 Savage, but some people made comments on how good it was. So I don't doubt that it's awesome. I just don't see how it would be any better than a 308. I just think a 308 is kind of the same thing, but just a little bit better. Unless you want a little bit less recoil than a 308. But I can't see myself picking a 300 Savage to go hunt moose with. However, a 30-30 has killed lots of moose, so I know a 300 Savage could. And if that's your pick, I'm not saying you're wrong in the slightest. I think it's a pretty cool pick. I'm going to mark it off. Okay, it's getting really tough now because I don't see any cartridge on here that I don't think could win. I think they're all fantastic. and I'm having a tough time really deciding what I want to do. I'm going to mark off one more that it's kind of in the same category as the 277 Sig Fury and the 6.5 Weatherby RPM. I just don't know enough about them. My own ignorance is going to cause me to mark this off. I just don't have the personal knowledge to assume it's better than other cartridges, but maybe it is. But I'm going to mark off the 6mm arc. Okay, it's time to start making people mad. If you see the cartridge on here that you think should win, I in no way am disagreeing with you. The fact that they're on my list should tell you that I like them a lot. But I gotta have to figure out some way of marking them off the list. So I'm gonna start cutting some off that are awesome and definitely could be on here, but I just have to make a cut somewhere. Gotta get a winner. So here we go. Prepare yourself to be mad at me. I know. People just started tuning out. No issues with the 300 Winchester Magnum whatsoever. It's proven itself. It definitely has proven itself as a sniper gun at 1,000 yards. It's unbelievable hunting cartridge. I would say it's a bit much for your antelope and your white-tailed deer. Maybe it might be a bit much for goats, but probably not. Because if you're hunting in, sheep and things, if you're hunting in mountains, it would be pretty good for that. The only issue is the efficiency. And I'm not saying it's inefficient, okay? I'm just saying, I honestly, with the 300 WSM there, the 300 short mag, it kind of does the same thing, but it's more efficient. If this was someone else's list and they didn't care about efficiency, then they wouldn't do what I'm getting ready to do. But I just feel like the WSM is so close. It might not be exactly, but it's so close in performance, yet it's more efficient. 2-inch shorter barrel, generally speaking, shorter action. Unless you're talking about the heaviest bullets, it's pretty much the same. So with the 300 WSM just being a more efficient version, gonna have to mark it off. Also, get ready. I'm gonna mark off the 300 PRC. So the thing that makes the 300 PRC stand out and is really cool is the fact that it can shoot the heaviest bullets, probably up to like 250 grain. It's literally made with the faster twist rates. It's kind of like all of our modern day cartridges. The bullet is seated out further. The rifle has the chamber prepared for that with the faster twist rates. And it's just it would be really awesome at shooting really heavy 30 grain or 30 caliber bullets. But that's really the only nod it would have over the 308, the 30-06, or the 300 WSM would just be you could shoot the heaviest bullets and the other ones can't. It has a better twist rate and all that. So, but for me, if it was only moose or only biggest game or only 1,000-yard shooting, okay, I could see that it would have an advantage. But for an all-around, I don't really want to shoot 250 grain bullets out of that 30 caliber round. It's just not covering as much of the spectrum. It has not a whole lot of benefit to your whitetail deer, to your stuff like that. I just don't think it has a whole lot more to offer than a WSM or even a 30-06 really, unless you're talking about the extreme heavy bullets. And for me, that's not enough difference to make it better. So it's off the list. Okay. I'm gonna make a lot of other people mad, so here we go. Holy cow. Are you still with me? I love the 270. I love the 280. If you say you like the 270, but you don't like the 280, that makes no sense. How could you not like it? It's so similar. Love the 284. Never had a 7mm WSM. So why did I mark those 4 off? First of all 4 of those could easily do it. All 4 of those could easily, I mean, when you're talking antelope to moose, all 4 of them could definitely do it, have done it, okay? All of them could be good choices. The 284, best of my knowledge, is just not offered in any factory rifle at this time. I'm sure there's like a $5,000 or $6,000 semi-custom factory rifle that might be in 284. Ultralight Arms used to have one, but you just can't go out and buy one. So for that reason alone, I'm going to mark it off the list. I have to find something to mark these fantastic cartridges off the list. 7mm WSM, I think it's really, really cool. I know a lot of people have really, found out that the 7 Psalm, which I didn't even list here, is unbelievable at long range. Well, the 7 WSM is going to be the same thing. It's going to be very similar, but it's just fading away. It's just becoming less and less popular. I don't know. There might be a couple out there, but there's not very many factory offerings in that caliber, but I think it's a darn good caliber. But I just can't have all the WSMs on here, even though they all are efficient. But I'm going to keep the 270 WSM. I'm going to keep the 300 WSM. I just don't want 3 WSMs on here, so I'm going to take it out. 280 and 270. Why did I get rid of them? That was a tough one. It's only because of efficiency. It's not that they're inefficient, but they're not as efficient as some of these other rounds. It's an older design. 270 came out in 1925. 280 is just, almost the same thing, but it's just 7/1000ths of an inch difference. Came out, I believe, in the 50s or 60s. They're just not quite as efficient. They're just that longer action. They don't have the modern efficient touches to the case. So they're fantastic. They would do great, but you could do better. Okay, and on the 270, for instance, it's not really geared for 1,000-yard shooting. Can it be done? Sure. Is it really geared for it? No, it's not. The 1 in 10 twist rate really hampers it. It's only going to shoot a 150 grain bullet. Now, this 270 short mag is the same exact way. I'm going to leave it in for it, just barely squeaks by. I just don't think that your 270 is a super efficient. I don't think it will be great at 1,000 yards. For hunting, it'd be fantastic, but it doesn't make the cut. And the 280, same scenario really, even though it's definitely could be shot at 1,000 yards because it's got a much more versatile bullet selection. But right underneath it's the 280 Ackley improved, and it's just a more improved, more efficient version of the 280. How could I keep the 280 in there? And that 280 Ackley improved is becoming more and more popular, coming out in more and more factory rifles. Savage is now offering them in some of their cheaper guns, even their Savage Axis. So I'm going to cut that out. All right, I'm also going to cut out 264 Win Mag, kind of for the same reason. Now you could shoot it at 1,000 yards. It's not really designed for that, but you could do it with that 140 grain bullet as long as you had a 1 in 8 twist. But in all honesty, most of those rifles come in a 1 in 9 twist. Be tough. Efficiency? Nah, it's not really efficient. It's kind of in the same vein as the 7mm Remington Magnum. But in all honesty, I would say it's a little bit less efficient than the 7 Mag. Its barrel life is very short. I just don't think it makes the cut, but for hunting, holy cow, it would be fantastic, okay? Now, the 6.5 PRC, and the 6.5 284. I'm going to leave them in for now. 270 WSM 6.8 Western. Leave them both in for now. 280 Ackley Improved 7mm Remington Magnum. Going to leave them in. And the 308 and the 30-06 and the 300 WSM. I'm going to leave them in for now. All those are going to make the next cut. Let's make one last look on this video at the varmint/predator hunting side. Is there anything I can mark off that list? Oh boy, okay, here we go. 6mm Remington is fantastic. If you get it in a 1-in-8 twist, or even a 1-in-9 twist, it's gonna be good. And in all honesty, just based on performance, it's right there with the 243 and the 6mm Creedmoor, but I've got to cut it for some reason. I just don't think it's as efficient as the other ones. And even as I say that, I'm not positive that I'm correct on that, but it's just that older design based on the 7mm Mauser. It's going to be intermediate/longer action, which is not that big of a deal, but it's just not quite as efficient, in my opinion, as that 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor case that the other two are parented from. If all you were worried about was hunting, all you were worried about was flat shooting, you couldn't go wrong with that 6mm Remington. It's fantastic, but I'm gonna cut it out of here. As far as the Valkyrie, the 22-250 and the 223, I think I'm gonna leave them all three in for now. The Valkyrie has something the other two don't. It's kind of designed for longer range shooting. For the moment, I'm gonna leave it in. And I'm definitely gonna leave in the 243 and the 6mm Creedmoor. So that's the cut for today. I know I made people mad. This is just my opinion. And it just keep thinking about efficiency. That's really the thought process. Is it efficient? Could you easily shoot it at 1,000 yards? And would it be a good all-around hunting for these applications? We're gonna stop the video there and we'll pick it up on the next time. I'm gonna whittle it down. We will have a winner, okay? So stay tuned for that.